Now, I want to tell you something about these slinkies. So first of all, let me tell you what slinky means. Slinky means, it means sleek and graceful. Bet you didn't know that. Y'all knew it was metal, but y'all didn't know that the meaning of the slinky, it's a budget slinky. Absolute. Means sleek and graceful. All right. Now, the inventor of the slinky is Richard James. Bet you didn't know that either. So y'all knew it was metal, but y'all didn't know that it meant sleek and graceful, and y'all didn't know that the inventor was Richard James, who was an engineer, serving in the Navy, and accidentally one of his springboards broke, and came up with the slinky. His wife, Betty James, came up with the name and thought it would be really neat to market it as a toy. So they took out a loan of $500. This is back in 1943. Took out a loan of $500, and the rest is all history, guys. They shopped it around a little bit, and one gimbal store in, I believe, Philadelphia or Pennsylvania took a risk on them and allowed them to have some stocking in about 400 units. They were approved to have shelved in the store, and 400 units sold out in just 90 minutes, and the rest is history. An accident, guys. He wasn't looking for the next big toy. He just happened to drop it on the floor, see this sort of neat momentum feature and quality and aspect or characteristic of the springs, which is really what makes it what it is, and the rest is history. A mistake. He paid attention, said, hey, this looks kind of cool. Got with his wife, talked about it, and the rest is history. The sleek and graceful mechanism is born. Sold 400 units in 90 minutes, and after that, they were in great demand. To date, well, in just 2 years, let me just mention this, in just 2 years, it's kind of hard to get an accurate estimate because currency value has changed, but approximately in just 2 years, they grossed about 1 billion, what would be equivalent to today, 1 billion in sales. In just 2 years, from this. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I don't want to hear that you can't come up with the next idea or anything. I mean, look at it, guys. Does this look like $1 billion idea to you? Anyway, Toy Hall of Fame. This mechanism right here. Toy Hall of Fame. Betty and Richard were really intentional about making sure that this item remained affordable. So you wouldn't really see, if you look through the history of the slinky, you might see one that, went up. I think the peak was right about $4.89 with tax. But they were very intentional about making sure that long term this remained an affordable toy. All right. Now, I think that, it's amazing how these toys and the simple things in life can begin speaking to you. And as I thought about my favorite toy, guys, I thought about some of the lessons that we can learn from the slinky. As I pondered, why this particular toy would make so much money and would be groundbreaking for the toy industry, I started to look at its features, and its features begin to teach me a lot about what is required for us to be as tremendous and phenomenal and as long-lasting as the slinky. So the first thing that the slinky teaches us about is it teaches us about flexibility. Number one, the first thing that the slinky teaches us about is about how to be flexible. I had a situation occur even this week that I don't have enough time to divulge, but I will say that immediately it called for me to be flexible. It called for me to be just like this slinky and go with the momentum and go with the flow. Flexible. I don't know if any of you guys are like me, but I don't really like change. I don't really like abrupt change. I usually have a plan for most things. But one of the things that I've learned about life is life constantly requires us to be flexible. It requires us to be adaptable to change and to seasons, and to be resilient enough to handle disappointments and frustrations and moments where we feel overwhelmed or challenged by certain things. We've got to be flexible. This is what the scripture says in Philippians 4 and number 6. I want to read it. It says, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in ye might have peace, and that in the world shall have tribulation." I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong scripture. Therefore, Philippians 4 and 6 says, "Therefore, my beloved brothers," it says this, it says, "be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that thy labor is not in vain." What does that mean? Sometimes you gotta go with the flow. Life is going to come to challenge you. There are going to be some things that are going to come to confront you, to try to throw you off track, to try to veer you off your purpose and your goals. But you've got to say, hey, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. I got to be flexible. All right, that's the first thing. We got to be flexible. John says, "These things I have spoken unto you, that ye might have peace in the world. Ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer." He says, "For I have overcome the world." Part of being flexible is the optimism that God has already ordered your steps, that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and that if something comes your way that's unexpected, that God has already given you the grace to handle it. That's a good word, guys. That's really a good word. Like, you've been given the grace to handle the situations that confronts you on a day-to-day basis. That God has given you the grace within, because the scripture says that greater is he that is in us than he that's in the world. And so we've got to be flexible. We can't be stuck. We got to be flexible. We got to be able to move. And sometimes not being flexible causes us to be stagnant. It causes us to be complacent. All right? But I want you to just say flow. One word, flow. When I think about flexibility, I think about flow. Somebody who just has the ability to be fluid and it is not stuck, but is willing to be mobile. And sometimes if we really want to be blessed, you can't get stuck anywhere. You can't get stuck in seeing God move one way or doing it one type of way, but you got to be flexible. All right? Number one is flexible. Number two, what makes this slinky so amazing is its durability. It's durability. Now, a lot of those toys that you named are great, but let me tell you something that's also associated with those toys: brokenness. All right, I'm talking life, but I'm also talking toys, right? One of the things that happens all the time that disappoints us about these toys is the fact that they break so easily. But what they did in cornering the market with Slinkies is the fact that this wasn't a toy that parents weren't going to have to go back out and get 5 and 7 and 10 of these. You probably had 1 or 2 Slinkies and that lasts you. You probably lost it. Maybe the springs got a little bit twisted after a while, but it's all in all, it's a durable toy. My brothers and sisters, God is calling for us to be durable, to be strong, to not be so easily worn or easily, become lethargic and discouraged. The scripture tells us in Ephesians 6:10, it says, "Finally, brethren, be strong in the Lord. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." We got to be strong, guys. We got to be able to take it. We're living in a time in a society, and this could probably be a controversial statement depending on your context and depending on really just how you perceive things. But people are overly sensitive nowadays. I mean, you can't say anything about anybody. I mean, people are overly opinionated too. I mean, people have an opinion about everything. And I think mainly, I don't think that's changed. I think just people have a platform now. They can actually come on social media and they just have, they got an audience now. You give a person an audience, they become a totally different person. But I think that all in all, I've said this before, we're just not as tough as we used to be. We're just not as strong as we used to be. We just let the enemy just beat up on us and we don't fight back. But God is calling for us to learn from our friend the Slinky and be durable. And be durable and be tough. And be courageous and be steadfast. And sometimes you got to make up in your mind, hey, the winds are blowing, the storm is coming, but I ain't going nowhere. I ain't giving up. I ain't going out like no sucker, and I ain't no punk. So we got to be strong. All right. So first thing that the Slinky teaches us is about flexibility. The second thing is about durability. And I got to close, guys. But the third thing is about consistency.